Look at those roots. Well, what's up guys, this is Daniel from Arms Family Homestead, and as you can tell I'm out in the greenhouse today and I'm going to be transplanting some asparagus. So if you've never grown asparagus before, it's kind of an interesting crop to grow. It's a little bit different than growing something like squash, tomatoes, or lettuce, cucumbers, because asparagus is a perennial plant, meaning that it's going to come back from year to year to year. It's not just plant the seeds this year, grow it, harvest it, and then start over next year. Asparagus is something that could last for up to decades. I've heard people say as long as 40 years. Obviously, I've never grown asparagus for 40 years because I'm not that old. But last year, I was given some asparagus roots. So there's two ways that you can grow asparagus. You can start from a little teeny tiny seed and plant it and grow one asparagus plant at a time from seed. It can be done that way. But it's very, I'm not going to say it's difficult, it's a time-consuming process. Asparagus takes many years. It could take 2 to 3 years before you could ever harvest, because as you can tell by my roots here, it grows underground for a long time before it sends up an actual asparagus stalk. So you could grow it from seed, or you could do like me and start from roots. And that's what most people do. When they grow asparagus, they go to the store. Any garden center in the spring of the year usually is going to sell asparagus roots or crowns or rhizomes, whatever you want to call them. But growing them from bare roots is by far the easiest way. So last year someone gave me 10 or 12 asparagus plants, and they were probably, I would say, about this big right here. And I planted them in those tubs. You guys saw I had multiple tubs last season with asparagus growing in it. I just dumped them out, cleaned the roots off. You could see, look at, I mean, this is probably at least 4 feet long if I stretched it all the way up, maybe 3.5, 4 feet long. And I planted these in those tubs last year because I knew I wanted to let them have plenty of time to mature into good healthy roots, because I didn't know how old they were. So the thing about asparagus roots, if you plant them the first year you plant the roots, you need to just let them sit. Let them grow. They will spread out, grow roots, and then start shooting up asparagus stalks. And what you want to do the first year, and maybe even your second year depending on how many you have, is let those stems grow on up into what you call asparagus ferns. Because the more top growth you can get on those asparagus ferns that first and second year, obviously the more root growth you're going to get. So today we're going to be planting these in a raised bed here in my greenhouse. So the thing with asparagus is it does not like to compete with grass and things. And I thought about going and planting these in the outside garden, but I like to move things around too much. At least here in the high tunnel, I've got a good raised bed with nice loose soil that I can really dig down into with my hands. And asparagus roots, obviously we've got a lot of roots to plant, but asparagus roots like to have room to reach down. As you can tell, they put down a lot of growth, and the more roots you can get to grow, obviously the more top growth you're going to get. So let's get this bed prepared and we'll get these roots in the ground. Look at those roots. So I've had these raised beds here for a couple years, and as you can see, I hauled in a whole load, about 4 or 5 5-gallon bucket loads of compost that I made here on my farm, and it's mostly goat manure, goat bedding, straw, wood shavings, and things like that that have composted down for about a year. So it's good, rich, organic material that I'm adding to the top of this bed. The bed, as I said, is super soft. I came in with a potato fork and dug down, broke everything up, and you can literally just dig by hand, okay? So what I'm gonna do is make a trench down the middle of this bed. This bed's about 3 feet wide, and I think it's about 12 feet long. So I'm gonna put a trench down the middle. And the old timers used to tell you, if you're gonna plant asparagus, plant it, dig a trench about 18 inches deep and plant it as deep as you can. And I've found that's not really necessary. We really don't want to plant these crowns too deep. You just want to plant to where you get that crown barely under the soil. The roots, yes, you want to get those down pretty deep, but we're going to put them in a trench so we don't have to go straight down. So let's get this furrow opened up. So I got all of my asparagus plants planted. This one bed will be more than enough to feed my family. Probably 2 to 3 cuttings of asparagus this year. One thing with growing asparagus, like I said earlier, all the growth comes from the roots. So if you don't have good healthy roots on your asparagus, you're not going to get much of a harvest. So you don't want to overdo it. But I know for sure that these roots are at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 years old. So I know we'll be able to harvest from them this year just with the amount of root growth that they had from growing them in those tubs from last year. But anyways, we got them all put in the ground. Before I water them well, I'm just going to top dress them with some leaves from my yard. As you can see, these are about, I would say partially broken down leaves that I just picked up out of the yard. They've been wet all winter long. Just going to mulch them really well. I could use straw, but the straw that I have still has a lot of seed in it. And if these were shredded, they would probably be better. It'd be best to hit them with my mulcher or something first, but we're just going to put a top dressing of mulched leaves, or of leaves as a mulch on there. So we're just going to top dress these with a nice mulch of leaves to help hold in the moisture and keep some of the weeds at bay, because it's starting to warm up. Spring's almost here. Things in the greenhouse are getting toasty because I'm sweating right now. But that asparagus will have no problem at all coming up through these leaves. So we get them mulched in. I'm going to go hook up a water hose, get them watered in, and that's it. We'll be set for years to come with lots of asparagus. So growing asparagus is really simple. It's almost like plant it and forget it. Once you get your roots in good shape and get them growing, you really have to do very little for them. Maybe a little bit of mulch every once in a while, top dress them with some compost to give them plenty of nutrients. But asparagus is a lot of fun because it's one of those crops that like kids love to grow, because you can go out one day and just have a little bitty asparagus stem sticking up out of the ground and say, it's almost ready, guys, it's almost ready. And then 2 or 3 days later, you may go out there and it'll be 8 or 10 inches tall. Those things grow really fast. Kids really like to grow them. And I always say, if you can get your kids involved in growing their food, they're much more likely to eat it than if you just bring something home from the grocery store. It's not going to taste the same. Grocery store vegetables are nowhere near as tasty, but those kids will learn if they put their hard work into it and they put their sweat and time and energy into growing something, they're much more likely to taste it. I mean, Houston and I were down at the barn the other day and we're trying to get this baby goat to nurse, and he's really curious about, he wants to learn how to milk a goat. He's curious. And if I'd have brought in, a big glass of goat's milk from the barn, he'd have said, I ain't drinking that. But when he was down there at the barn learning how to do it, he really thought about tasting it and trying it. So we didn't have any good way to keep it clean or anything. He was just kind of squirting it, just learning. But the fact is, he was curious about it and he was willing to try it because he had his hands on it. He knew what it was and where it came from. Growing vegetables, something like asparagus, exactly the same way. So guys, that's all I've got for today. Spring is almost here. It's coming, and I really need to get out in the greenhouse, spend more time out here, get things ready. Got a lot of seeds I need to get started, a lot of greens that I need to replace and get new seeds going. But anyways, that's all I'm gonna do for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Y'all have a great day, and as always, we'll see you on the next video.